I thought the evening was going to be ordinary. Me, a lawn chair, and the hush that comes when cicadas start to sing over the last rustle of daylight. But then my back gate clicked, and my neighbor Donald stepped in, holding something that glinted in the fading sun. I expected a quick apology and a retreat. Instead, he brought a confession I never saw coming, the kind that knocks the dust off a heart you thought you'd packed away for good. Before I dive in, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I love reading where everyone is tuning in, whether it's Tampa or Toledo, Phoenix or Philadelphia. Drop your city so I can wave to you from my little corner of the world. Now the story. It was one of those late summer evenings that feel like a secret reward. The light melted into a warm syrup across the fence slats. The crepe myrtle drooped with tired pink, and the breeze lifted the corner of the plaid picnic blanket I'd forgotten to bring back inside. My backyard isn't fancy. 2 Adirondack chairs, a bird bath with a nick on the rim, and a rosemary bush that refuses to die no matter how badly I prune it. I was turning a lemon wedge around the rim of my glass and listening to the low murmur of a ball game drifting from someone's radio down the street. I'd spent the day cleaning out a hallway closet, and frankly was proud of my small mountain of who was I kidding? Shoes headed for donation. The gate has a faulty latch, one of those things I'd promised myself I would fix and then promptly ignored. That's why I wasn't startled by the click, not at first. I thought it was the wind. But then the gate eased open, and there was Donald, framed in the gap like a tall question mark, holding a metal latch and a small bag that I recognized only by the smell before the sight. Peaches. I didn't mean to intrude, he said, hovering with 1 foot in, 1 foot out, the gentleman's version of knocking on an open door. But I saw your gate swinging while I was out back, and I worried about the raccoons. They'll party in your trash if given half a chance. You're not wrong about that, I said. They've already invited themselves over twice this summer. Come in, if you like. He stepped inside, taller than I remembered when we chatted over mailboxes or waved across driveways. Donald lives 3 houses down. We graduated to first-name nods last winter, after we both dug out our sidewalks during that early snow. He's a good neighbor, the kind who brings your trash cans up without mentioning it, and knows the day lilies bloom sooner on the east side. He's somewhere near my age. I'm 54, and if his shoulders sloped a little that evening, it looked less like defeat and more like a man who's learned to carry things the right way. I brought a spare latch from my shed, he said, lifting the metal piece. You mentioned it once, months ago. I was cleaning today and thought, well, that would suit Ashley's gate. And these? He held up the paper bag. My cousin dropped off too many peaches. Too many peaches does not exist, I said. Thank you. I don't know what it was about the way he stood there, steady but uncertain, that unfurled something in me. Maybe it was the light, or the peaches, or the fact that some days the quiet gets too loud. I gestured to the chair opposite mine. You've rescued my evenings from raccoon raves. You've earned a seat. He smiled like the sun had shifted just an inch in his favor and sat. The chair creaked, approving. I poured him lemonade and pushed the small bowl of almonds toward him. We talked first in the neighborly way, gardens and weather, the ball game. The feral cat that has decided our block is its kingdom. He told me how the fence on the corner property had started to lean and how he offered to help the new owner straighten it. I told him about the closet I'd conquered and the unholy number of mismatched gloves I'd found. He laughed in a low, warm way that made the leaves overhead murmur back. After a while he stood and examined the gate from the inside, turning the latch in his hand like a puzzle he knew he could solve. It's not just the latch, he said. The wood's a bit warped. Might need a shim. If it's okay with you, I'll tack something in place for the night. and we can get it proper this weekend." "We sounds nice," I said before I could help myself. He glanced at me, surprised, then pleased, as if I'd held out a hand he'd been hoping I'd extend. He worked with the comfortable silence of someone who's fixed many small things in his life. The clink of metal, the soft scrape of wood, the whisper of the breeze. I watched his hands, capable, not hurried, and thought about hands in general, how they tell the story of a life without needing to say a word. At some point, the ball game down the street swelled and then fell, and a cheer rolled through the air like distant thunder. When he finished, he closed the gate, and it answered with a gentle, certain click. He tested it twice. "It'll hold for now," he said, brushing his palms. "No raccoon parties tonight." "Cheers to that," I said, tapping my glass. "And thank you." He returned to his chair. We sipped our lemonade. The light gentled itself into evening. Somewhere a sprinkler sputtered to life, and the air smelled faintly metallic and green. "Can I ask something without sounding strange?" he said after a beat. I nodded. "Go ahead. Have you been humming Patsy Cline lately? That old one? Crazy?" I laughed, surprised. "I have. I hum when I'm nervous, and I've been rearranging the house. Hard habit to break." "It isn't strange," he said quickly, then paused, selecting his words with care. "My late wife loved that song. I heard it the other night, a voice drifting over the fence, and it stopped me cold. It wasn't the song, not exactly. It was the way it sounded, like a person reminding herself that she's still here. The confession hung between us like the first star, small but sure. I felt that sudden softening you get when someone names a truth you didn't realize you were spilling. 'I'm sorry you lost her,' I said, and meant it." "Thank you," he replied. "It's been 2 years. Some days it feels like yesterday. Some days it feels like a lifetime ago that fits in my pocket." He looked at the rosemary bush as if it might answer for the stubbornness of grief. "I thought I was hearing things, honestly. Then I saw your gate tonight and decided to fix what I could fix. There it was, the thing that tightened my throat. The world is filled with problems too big for a person to hold. A broken latch is not one of them. Fixing a small thing can feel like saving a piece of the day. I'm better at fixing what I can fix than sitting with what I can't," I admitted. Hence the closet project. He smiled. Closets are brave places. We shared a quiet that wasn't empty. The evening slipped further down the sky. A neighbor across the alley started a grill, and the faint spice of charcoal threaded through the flowers. I could hear the clink of plates, the little chorus of a family settling in for dinner. And here we were, 2 people not quite alone and not quite together, holding a careful space. "May I tell you something else?" he asked. "Please." "The peaches," he said, and lifted the bag almost sheepishly. "I've been leaving fruit on your porch on Sundays, just once or twice. I didn't sign the note because I didn't want you to feel obliged to say anything. It made me feel useful, like I was part of the neighborhood in a way that mattered." I looked at the bag and felt a warm surprise that bordered on relief. I'd wondered about the fruit. Peaches once, tomatoes another time, assuming it was a random kindness from a neighbor too shy to knock. "That was you, Donald. That was, well, it made my week both times." He made a helpless little gesture, palms up. I hoped it would. I'm trying to learn how to show up without barging in. There's a difference, and I've not always known it. Something in me settled. I thought about the humming, the bag, the latch. None of it grand, all of it exact. "You're doing just fine," I said. "Showing up is an underappreciated art. He nodded, and the smile that followed was one of those rare things that seems to land on the table between you and sit there, patient and gentle, waiting to be picked up. The porch light clicked on by its timer, and the yard shifted from gold to honey. I stood then, and so did he, like we'd rehearsed it. "Do you have a minute?" I asked. "There's a string of lights that's been teasing me for weeks, and I can't figure out which bulb is the traitor." He grinned. "I am fluent in treacherous bulbs." We worked shoulder to shoulder along the hedge, peering at each stubborn bead of light. He was careful to ask before reaching across me, careful in the way of someone who has graduated from the big gestures of youth to the precise courtesies that mean more. He held the ladder while I climbed 2 steps, and I had the absurd thought that I could lean back and trust him, and the whole universe would pause and hum a Patsy Cline note in approval. We found the bad bulb, the string warmed to life, and the backyard took a small breath of wonder. The light touched the petals, the bird bath, the empty second chair. It made an ordinary yard look like a room we hadn't noticed we'd already built. "Stay a little longer?" I asked. "I can cobble together a peach cobbler with what you brought, but I'll need your forgiveness for the store-bought crust." He laughed. "I can forgive anything except skipping cinnamon." "Then we're safe." In the kitchen I sliced fruit, and he rinsed dishes without being asked, a little test he seemed to pass without noticing. He told me about the first house he fixed up with his wife, how they argued lovingly about paint colors, how the radio they bought together still sat on a shelf in his garage because he couldn't bear to move it. I told him about my son, grown and busy, who calls me from his car when the red lights all line up, and he has 10 minutes to pretend he still needs my advice. We talked about good coffee and bad chairs, and how both could give you a stiff back if you weren't careful. When the cobbler went in, we stood by the sink and watched the last line of sunlight lie down behind the fence. He set his glass down and turned toward me, not too close, not too far. The space felt like a porch swing, room to breathe, gentle motion, the promise of a view. "Forgive another odd question," he said. "Go on." "Would it be all right if I held your hand for a minute? I've forgotten what it's like to be sure that something is welcome." He looked almost boyish as he said it, brave in a way that doesn't show off. I didn't make him wait. "Yes," I said, and offered my hand. He took it as if it were something living, which is to say carefully and with attention. His palm was warm, and the knot in my chest unwound just enough to let air through. We stood like that, simple, steady, as the timer on the oven hummed and the smell of peaches rose between us like a soft flag. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks, no sudden declarations. Just 2 people who'd both learned the cost of rushing, letting a moment be exactly the size it needed to be. He didn't squeeze. He didn't pull. He just held on, and for the first time in a long while, I let myself be held. When the oven chimed, we laughed because life insists on timing. I plated slices, and we took them back outside, where the string lights had made a stage of the ordinary. We ate quietly, traded compliments like neighbors do, and listened to the night settle. "I'll bring the right screws tomorrow," he said after a while. "For the latch and the shim." "I'll make coffee," I replied, "and maybe we can check the birdbath base. It wobbles like a drunk uncle." He laughed again. I filed the sound away for later, a small treasure. He rose to leave, gathering his empty plate and the bag with 2 remaining peaches. At the gate, he paused and looked back. The light made a soft frame around him, and the new latch glinted like a wink. "Thank you for letting me show up," he said. "Thank you for choosing to," I answered. "Not everyone does." He considered that, then nodded. "See you in the morning, Ashley." See you, Donald. He closed the gate with that tidy click that already felt like a promise. I stood for a moment longer, my hand still remembering the shape of his. The backyard looked the same, but I knew better. Some rooms are lit from the inside out, and all it takes to find the switch is a person brave enough to ask, "May I?" I cleaned up slowly, not wanting to outrun the evening. When I finally turned off the porch light, I caught my reflection in the glass. Older, yes, but softened, like someone who remembered that surprise can be kind. I thought about the humming, the peaches, the latch. The way a day can change not with thunder, but with a simple offer and the grace to accept it. If you're listening from your living room or your porch or the passenger seat at a long red light, tell me your city, and know this: the loudest miracles are often the quiet ones. Mine walked through a crooked gate with a bag of peaches and asked permission to hold my hand. Tomorrow morning, we'll fix a latch. What happens after that? Well, you might not believe it yet, but neither did I. The morning after felt different, though nothing in the world had changed. The sun rose the same way, stretching its pale light over the rooftops. The newspaper boy missed my porch again, tossing the paper half into the garden bed. The kettle whistled just as impatiently as it always did, and yet, when I stepped out onto the porch with my mug of coffee, the air carried a soft expectancy, as though it knew someone was coming. Sure enough, Donald appeared not long after, carrying a small toolbox and a half-smile. He looked like a man who had slept on a decision and woken more certain. His stride was relaxed, but there was intention in it, the kind of purpose you don't notice until you've lived long enough to know the difference between wandering and arriving. "Morning," he said, setting the box down near the gate. "I promised screws and a shim, and coffee if you'll allow me to trade labor for a cup." "Coffee's already brewed," I replied, lifting my mug. "Help yourself." We worked side by side again, and something about the repetition, the small tasks, the ease of leaning into silence when words weren't needed, made me feel younger and steadier at the same time. He explained what he was doing with the latch in a way that felt more like storytelling than instruction. I listened, sipping coffee, occasionally handing him a screwdriver, more grateful than I let on that someone else was willing to tighten the pieces I'd ignored. When he finished, he gave the gate a firm swing. It shut with a clean, confident snap. "There," he said. "That'll last." I ran my hand along the smooth edge of the wood, feeling the fresh steadiness under my fingertips. "Funny," I said. "Something small like that makes the whole yard feel different." "It's the little things," he answered. "That's all life really is when you add it up." We lingered, leaning on the fence post, drinking coffee while the world yawned awake. A jogger passed, dogs barked 2 houses down. The day began its ordinary rhythm. Yet inside, I felt a quiet rhythm of my own, one I hadn't let myself notice in years. Donald set his mug down. "Ashley, may I ask you something? And stop me if it's too forward." "Go ahead," I said, though my breath caught just a little. He studied me for a moment, as though measuring the weight of the words before he dropped them. "When I came over last night, holding your hand reminded me of something I thought I'd forgotten. Not about my wife, not about grief, but about being present with someone. Do you feel that too, or was it just me?" The honesty of the question tugged at something deep in me. For a moment, I didn't answer. I thought about the peaches, the gate, the string of lights, the way his laugh had folded itself into my memory overnight. And then I nodded. I felt it too. His shoulders eased, as if I'd given him permission to breathe again. "Good," he said simply, but there was a warmth in that word that stretched between us like sunlight. We ended up back at the table with the string lights above, though now they were pale in the daylight. I sliced the last of the peaches into a bowl, and we ate them with spoons, sharing the kind of quiet that isn't empty but full. He told me more about his wife, not in a way that weighed the air down, but in the way a man tells the truth about what shaped him. I told him about my son and how it feels to miss someone who isn't gone, just busy with his own life. You ever wonder, Donald asked, if the best years aren't behind us, but waiting where we least expect? All the time, I admitted. But I've also learned not to chase them. Sometimes you just have to let them walk through the gate. He chuckled at that, the kind of laugh that comes from recognition rather than humor. Then maybe I walked through at the right time. The rest of the day passed in easy pieces. He fixed the birdbath base just as promised, and I made sandwiches we ate on the porch. We discovered we both liked crossword puzzles and had a fondness for old jazz records. And when the sun dipped low again, we found ourselves in the same spot as the night before, under the glow of the lights he helped restore. He didn't ask to hold my hand this time. He simply reached for it, gently, and I let him, because the question had already been answered. As the night deepened, I realized something I hadn't dared to believe in a long while, that companionship doesn't always arrive with fanfare or drama or declarations. Sometimes it sneaks in with a bag of peaches and a toolbox, asking only for a cup of coffee and a moment of trust. When Donald stood to leave, he looked at me in a way that wasn't rushed or unsure. It was the look of someone who had found a place worth returning to. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. "Tomorrow," I said, smiling. And as the gate clicked closed, sure and steady, I knew this was only the beginning.